You were telling me about something interesting that I'd not really been aware of, I think because I was too young at the time, but right when Columbine happened and everyone was kind of looking for someone to blame, you mentioned that Marilyn Manson got kind of caught up in all that. Could you
Mm.
explain what happened there and how you like the parallels you see between that moral panic and the moral panic happening today?
Yeah. So yeah, Columbine happened, and I remember people talking about, oh, it was the music, it was the violent video games. I was probably the same age as the Columbine shooters when it happened. I think I was a senior in high school, or maybe a junior in high school, and I lived in the same state, so I lived like on another side of town for when it happened. And I still remember I was in class and they were playing it on the news and the little TV in the classroom or whatever. And I thought that the name Trenchcoat Mafia was like the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. And I mean, that name kind of encapsulates like probably who they were, you know, these kinds of, they just, I don't know, they go out of their way to wear something that no one would wear, and they think they're cool, and they're just, I don't know. Anyway, so like later that year, Marilyn Manson came through, and he was talking about how he had received, like he, at some point in the set, he was talking about how he had received death threats and all kinds of backlash from the Columbine shooting. And I mean, he released an album called Antichrist Superstar. So this was a time when you could say the Christian right was in power, I would say. And my parents are Christian, and so like I was very familiar with that set of ideas. And reflecting on it now, I find it interesting that at like the apogee of like the power of the Christian right, Marilyn Manson was like, you know, touring nationally and internationally, and he was receiving, you know, flack for the actions of the Columbine shooters, who, as far as I know, didn't listen to him. Um, but he was performing. And then, I mean, if you were to contrast that today, like the religion of of today is probably feminism. And so, if you had a parallel to Marilyn Manson today, it would probably be like some pickup artist guy, only as a musician or something, you know. So like if Roosh was a rock star and was touring about how he loved to just like fuck chicks or something, you know, and then wrote an album about it, you know. I mean, he's written books that are kind of like that, but I don't know, maybe his fame is comparable to Marilyn Manson's fame. It's kind of hard to tell because the music industry is so different now than it was in the 90s. But uh, yeah, so anyway, I mean, I'm like on the spectrum of like 1 to Roosh. I'm probably like 0.2. And, you know,
What do you mean by that?
well, so like he's probably like the closest to the boogeyman that a feminist would point and scream at.
Mm-hmm.
And because he wants classical, so like I can sort of, I understand the point that like feminists do not like this sort of traditionalist like relationship structure between men and women. And I can, you know, I can respect that. You know, I'm in a non-traditional relationship myself, and that's what's given me the freedom to work on my music. So I respect the sort of the conversation that increases people's ability to have relationships that work for them rather than a prescribed sort of structure or whatever. But he's like balls to the wall, Mr. Traditionalist. You know, he would prefer that be prescribed for all of society. So that, and then he also, you know, had his whole pickup artist thing where he was teaching guys how to get laid and or at least get laid by a certain type of chick. And then, you know, teaching men empowerment and stuff like that in the dimensions as far as getting laid and getting female attention and stuff like that, which I don't think it's bad, but it has the optics of like being against egalitarianism or something. I don't think it necessarily does, but it has those optics. So, if he's the boogeyman standard that you measure, bad men by, like I'd probably be on that spectrum, but I'm not even like I don't register on that spectrum,
But why are you on the spectrum to begin with?
Because I don't believe in patriarchy theory. I don't think that I don't think the story that men oppressed women is a valid story.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm a heretic in that sense. I'm also a heretic in the sense that I think a lot of the privilege stuff is an apex fallacy, and so like a metaphor I would use would be like, oh well, Barack Obama is president. I mean, he's not president anymore, obviously, but like when he was president,
everyone cries.
Yeah. So like he was in office, and when he was in office, it would be like saying black people don't have problems anymore. Don't you see there's a black person in the White House?
Yeah.
And so that's a similar statement that I think feminists are making about men as a whole. Like, oh, well, men have all this power, and...
Don't you see all these presidents?
Right, exactly. Don't you see all these presidents? Don't you see all these Congress people?
CEOs.
Right. And they don't really care about the ones at the bottom. And I guess they probably see you trying to help the ones at the bottom as trying to, like, lift them up to the top or something. I don't really know. But I just don't prescribe. I don't follow that view.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of. I don't follow that paradigm. So.
Do you think the level of moral panic about not agreeing with something like that is similar to the kind of moral panic that was happening about violent video games and metal music and Marilyn Manson back in the 90s when...
Yeah, there's this idea that if you're trying to help men, you're trying to prop up, like, rapists or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or... I mean, I don't really know what the argument is.
It's hard to tell with all, like, the hyperbole.
Yeah. So based on the backlash, it would seem to me that they want men to be homeless and incarcerated and crazy and incapable of functioning on a day-to-day basis. They want more men to go psychotic. They want more men to commit crimes so that they can be put in prison, because that's what I'm trying to stop. So if they're trying to stop me from trying to address those things, then that must be what they want.
Which is really supporting the status quo.
True, yeah, they reinforce the status quo for sure, especially for the bottom half and the bottom third.